Yeah, thanks for joining us. Jeroen's a really good friend. The first time I met him was in 2011 in Amsterdam. So I was the CEO of Philips wearables business. And I think there was a meeting in Amsterdam where all our top 50 leaders of Philips were catching up for our usual leadership kind of things. And then I went there for the meeting as usual, and we were all chatting, and suddenly Jeroen walks into the room and there's a buzz around, that's the new CIO. He's just come in and he's got entrepreneurial experience, he's got all of that. So I'm like, okay, one day I have to go meet him and ask him for some resources. As luck would have it, he comes straight and sits next to me, right? And I have a version from Jeroen later on saying that Jeroen spent so much time building emphasis here and he knows India really well, and he comes into the room and sees 70% to 80% are Dutch male, tall, white Dutch male. So then he sees one Indian and says, okay, let me go sit next to this guy. And so he comes and sits next to me. And I'm, as a head of a business, as a typical selfish head of a business, I'm always looking for resources. When I see someone from the top 5 of 100,000 employees come next to me, I'm putting my charming hat on to get some additional resources from him. But you got to be polite, so I tell him, Philips is a great company. I've read so much about what you've done in the past. But there are a few things that we probably need to change here in this company. That's what I told him. He turns around and says, Gopi, we've got to change a lot of things here. We have to change this, we have to change that, the architecture, we have to change. So he's like driven. He's a proper entrepreneur at heart coming there. So from then on, I said, this is not Jeroen Tas, this is Arun Das. He's one of us. He's there to shake up the whole place. So obviously we became very good friends since then. And anything that I need on the technology front, I always reach out to Jeroen. He helps a lot. And then more recently, post-COVID, Jeroen and I have co-invested in a company, one of the most exciting digital health companies in the world called Ancora Health. It's based out of the Netherlands. And the two of us met just after COVID, I think. We were sitting in their office and we were doing a review of the business. So there was a business presentation, there was much more going on. And Jeroen had just stepped down from CIO strategy role in Philips. So he was sitting there and the technical review happens. When the technical review happens, Jeroen's all in. So he's asking questions. What is this? Why are you doing this? Is this modular? Is this expandable? And the tech guys are directly discussing with Jeroen, and I'm like in total awe. How can somebody who's at the CIO strategy level come down and have this kind of a discussion? And then you see the whiteboarding of the entire data architecture has been done by Jeroen, and the company is implementing what he's put together there, right? I was super impressed, and I was like, I should have a conversation with him later on about this, just to understand how he does this. And then as the meeting gets over, Jeroen leans back to me and says, Gopi, for 10 years I tried doing this in Philips and nobody listened to me. I told these guys the startup has done it within a few months' time, right? So he loves that. He's at the heart. I always look at it, he's at the heart. He's an entrepreneur. He's an iconoclast. He wants to break rules. He wants to do new things. And if you read the book, you will also see how he thinks about all of this. So in Feb, when I visited him, usually when I visit him, he invites me home. He's got a beautiful, nice house on the canals of Amsterdam. In fact, one side of his house faces one canal, the other side faces the other one, and he's a great host. He makes tea and then sits down and discusses concepts. Well, brilliant guy. So there's no small talk. So he got his book out, gave it to me, and said, Gopi, I want you to read it and come back with unfiltered feedback. Unfiltered feedback. Not the Indian feedback. Right? Dutch feedback. So that's what he told me. So we had a great conversation post that. And my company, Disruptive AI, we focus on helping enterprises, enabling enterprises do AI transformations. That's what we are looking at. And some of the concepts in the books we are applying directly into what I'm doing. And hopefully he's going to help us a little bit more in he spent half a day in our trying to see how the world is changing, how the ecosystems, platforms are evolving. And so I just want to let you know, he's one of us. If any of you want to reach out to him, just send him a LinkedIn message and let him know you just interacted with him. He'll come back to you on specifics on the questions, but be prepared. He's an intense guy. There's no light conversation. Any conversation with him is like super intense and so on. And so I just wanted to give a personal intro to him. And we will have, Renuka is a very close friend of Jeroen, going back 20, 30 years. And she's flown down from Bombay exactly for this purpose, just to be here for this occasion. And we will have a lot to talk about, but I just wanted to give this special personal intro to Jeroen. He's going to spend a few minutes talking about the concepts in his book. Let me warn you, some of it is pretty heavy, but when he says it, it looks light, but hopefully you have a great time listening to that. Yeah.
Thank you, Gopi. Intense, heavy. Oh my God. First, let me thank you for this great opportunity and your wonderful intro. And of course, I would love to thank my really good friends Renuka and Gopi for being good friends, but also to help me shape what I'm going to talk about. So I was just looking at these little videos, intro videos, and you know what it reminded me of? You know, Starship Enterprise on its 5-year mission to explore new worlds and civilizations. Do you know what this is? It's this Star Trek. And I always thought of that as a great mission statement. And then you look at, you know, people always say one of the great mission statements of John F. Kennedy was, we're going to put a man on the moon. And then Elon Musk says, we're going to build a city in space. And I got thinking about it. Why a simple sentence? Why is it so impactful? Because you imagine something. And that's our great gift as humans. We can imagine stuff. We can rationalize stuff, but we can also imagine stuff. We can feel stuff. And let me start with that. Because I want to, it's heavy, it's intense, but it's also very foundational. So I want to go back to the basic questions of an organization, of people. And that started me thinking. And you will think, hey, I kind of recognize that title, Changing Fast and Slow. If you do, you read my favorite book. Because indeed, I was very much inspired by Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. Because what he tells us is that we have this fast brain that senses, that can react quickly, that can make decisions without really spending time thinking about it. But if we would live purely on our fast brain, we would almost be like animals. So God gave us our slow brain. So we can think, we can take distance, we can learn. Because we weren't born knowing what 4 + 4 is. But, you know, we can teach us. But then he says, be careful, be careful. There are biases. And these biases can become traps. So you have to be conscious. You have to be conscious. And I think a lot that we thought about, we discussed in the book was consciousness. How can I become a conscious leader, make conscious decisions? Well, to be conscious, you have to have a level of understanding. And you have to be able to answer the basic questions. The first question is obviously very simple. Why? Why does my organization exist? What's my role in the world? What's my contribution to the world? And then the second question is, who? For whom do I do this? Who are the people that I want to relate to, that I want to provide services to, that I want to partner with? So what is my world? What is my ecosystem? And then the next question is how? How do I do that? What? Sorry, the next question is what? What do I provide as a service, as a product? And then the question behind it, what value do I create? And the value is always in the eyes of the beholder. So how do my customers, my users perceive what I do? And then the next question is how? How do I balance the fast and the slow? Do I want to do a fast transaction? Or do I want to build a deep and slow relationship? Do I want to run and chase the prize, or do I want to step back as well and make sure I'm going in the right direction? Because if you don't know where you're going, you might not get there. That's not my quote, by the way, but it's a funny one. And then the last question is when? So when do you truly prove the value of the relationship? What are those events that your users, your customers, your stakeholders make them sit up and say, these are the people I want to work with. These are the people that I trust. These are the people I care about. Super simple questions. Now, if I go around and talk to ventures and companies, I ask these questions. I get strange answers. Apparently, people haven't thought it through. These are the basics. So, what's the world we're living in? I don't need to tell you because you know. You all know the huge impact that technology has on your lives. You all know that Gen AI is way more powerful than any technology that came before it. It's cognitive technology. We never had that. We had mechanical technology, if then else. If you put something into an LLM, even the builders of an LLM cannot predict the outcome. That's very interesting. We have social media that changed the world, that polarized the world. We're living in a world where geopolitics is super dynamic. We're all connected, where everything is dynamic. So this quote tells you that we're not in an era of change. We're in a change of eras. We're entering where no man has gone before. By the way, that's also from Star Trek. So what we looked at is Rob Teunis, my co-author, who's a McKinsey partner, and I started looking back and say, why is it that we see all this change, but organizations change so slowly? Why is it that some people are super successful and others gradually kind of slip into oblivion? So we started asking these kind of questions, and ultimately we saw 5 major shifts, and we call it a paradigm. A paradigm, I had to go back to my university days and read up on Kuhn, who had the paradigm shift. The paradigm is a way you look at the world, a way that tells you how to connect to other people and make decisions. So a paradigm is essentially maybe an unconscious model that guides the way you live. And we thought that in business you have paradigms as well. And what we could see is a dramatic change in paradigm. So there are 5 shifts that I'm going to walk you through, and I'll try to keep the pace here. But before I do that, I have to talk about complex systems. So when I stepped down from Philips, I started reading a lot on complex system theory. And then I concluded that actually organizations are treated like machines. So we have processes, we have KPIs, we have goals, we have cascaded goals, we have operating plans. But the reality, it's a complex system. And here's the dirty secret. If you study it, it will tell you you cannot control a complex system, but you can influence it. Like a city, Chennai, nobody can control Chennai, but you can influence. You can influence the flow, how people are building. You can promote business like you're doing. You can do all of that, but it's influencing. And the first thing that guides you to the goals in a system is the paradigm in which you perceive that system. Now, all complex systems are layered. And every system has a fast layer that senses and responds, like we have a fast brain. And there's a slow layer that stabilizes, that grounds. Think of a tree. The leaves of a tree change every year. It bears fruit. The branches may be decennia old. The trunk may be 300 years old. The ecosystem that the tree lives in may be 1,000 years old. And trees communicate. Trees communicate through fungi networks. So there's a lot of collaborations in these systems. And I think if we go back to these concepts, we start looking at our organization in a different way. So you already highlighted that we look at an organization like any other system in layers. So the operational layer, where most people live and work, senses and response. You want to make your process better. You want to give better customer service. You want to improve your HR processes. And we do it every day. And if you have the right employees, everybody will have a sense of improvement and maybe even innovation on that layer. But then you have a strategic layer that actually has to make sense of what you do and give it structure. So it shapes. And that's your processes, your systems, your plans, your strategies. That's where most of the leaders will live. They will think about what direction are we taking the company. But the strategic layer can hold your company back. Because if you have to make a big decision and there's like 25 leaders that need to sign off on it and you have to get them together and you have to, play the political game, you may be 8 weeks down the line for the first meeting and then a month before it gets implemented. So the strategic layer may have a structure where you have functions and departments that all try to optimize. But here's the trick or the secret of complex systems. If you optimize the parts, the whole is never optimized. And all the big challenges in your organization, even maybe in your family, transcend the single entity, transcend the department, transcend the function. So if you have a supply chain problem that's really nasty, it's rarely just a supply chain problem. If you have a customer acquisition problem, it's rarely just your sales department. So you have to think of it way more holistically, and then you have to look at, does it help me, pick up opportunities, does it help me resolve the challenges we have? And then there is actually a deeper layer, and I think this is the one that's the one that's mostly unconscious. And that's, what are we truly believing in? How much risk are we willing to take? What are our moral values? How important do we consider the relationships we build? Are we purely transactional? Are we going for quarterly results? Do we have limited moral direction to what we're doing? And people will know, but you won't talk about it. We have these posters with values, but typically values are lived in a different way. People say one thing and they do another thing. So we believe that this existential layer is super important because it determines your culture, it determines on who you are, and that's the reason why I didn't hesitate when Renuka asked me to be associated with her company to say yes, not a second. Because I know that on the existential layer, we have a deep connection. So, here's the first shift, and I'll go quickly, but this is a very profound one. So when I grew up in the Netherlands in the 60s, we had 2 television channels. And I explained it to an Indian friend. I said, yeah, we didn't have much. We had only 2 television. And he said, we had 1 television channel, but no TVs. So we have 2 cars in India, the Ambassador and the Marathi. So yeah, we grew up in scarcity. Now, I want to ask you, how many products can you buy on Amazon today, now, on your phone, here? Make a guess. What? 1 million. 500 million. Now, think of Gen AI. Think of what you can do, the knowledge you can generate, the agents you can build. I wrote a blog recently with my son about the autonomous company. We basically created a whole concept of creating a company that's self-directed. And then a friend of mine who happens to run one of the largest trading companies in the Netherlands said, I already run an autonomous company. I'm on 100 capital markets, and my AI algorithms find little latencies and friction, and we trade on that. And I have 20 PhDs, and that's my company. So we have an abundance of opportunity, but we're constrained in our mind. We don't see the opportunity. And if our starting point is human needs are endless, opportunity is boundless, and we have all the tools we want available, even here in Chennai. We have it. How to use it? So abundance, there's even abundance of capital. I'm pretty sure that if you have a great idea, you have a great team, and you find a unique proposition, that Renuka will help you fund it. So there is abundance, but it comes first in your mind. Second, we are caught up in the past. We have grown up, I have grown up, I got my MBA learning about efficiency, how to optimize a value chain, how to optimize your inventories, how to create best contracts with your suppliers, and how to lock in your customers. Lock in your customers. This is an outdated model. Volkswagen has 21,000 suppliers. They have contracts with each of them. And each contract determines the price, the quality, and the delivery times. So there's a whole machine. And then suddenly somebody says, oh, look at this company in the US with this crazy guy, Elon Musk. He creates these EVs and charging stations. And it's actually, software with a, car enclosure. Oh, yeah. Our people want to buy combustion engine. They love the sound of the engine, the roar of the engine. They love to shift gears. I tell you, that's the existential layer talking. That's not trying to face up to the reality that the new world is emerging on the other side. And you know who saw this? Of course, Elon Musk saw it first. The Chinese. Look at the Chinese automotive ecosystem. It's amazing. So Xiaomi is a phone company that decided to become a car company. And in 2 years, they created a super nice, in 2 years, they created a car. And when they launched it, in 1 hour, they sold 50,000 cars in 1 hour. Why could they do it? Not because they were a great car market. They had no experience in building cars. No, they had an ecosystem. There were all these guys, we could do batteries, we can create the engines. Oh, we can help you with the train. Oh, you need software, we have the AI. You need a self-driving car, we'll make a self-driving. Oh, you want to turn it into a karaoke studio, we'll turn it into a karaoke studio. Oh, you want your car to swim? We'll make it swim. So, a value chain can never compete with a value network. A value chain can never compete with an ecosystem. And there's no single company in the world that can beat an ecosystem. If you try to move a semiconductor factory like the US from Taiwan to Nevada, it's not going to work. It's not working. Read the newspapers. Why is it not working? Because they have all the knowledge. They know how to build a factory. There is no ecosystem. There are no 100,000 people trained on semiconductors. There are no little companies around that provide all the parts and the talent and the tools and what have you. So the ecosystem is the power. Now, the business model that belongs to the value chain is the pipeline. It's a pipeline. You move stuff from one side to the other. It's linear, it's slow, with very little feedback. The platform is the model. Because what does a platform do? It orchestrates. So it starts with the users, First question is, of course, why do I exist? I exist because I want to help creative people get their book out on the market in as wide as possible way as possible. That's the Kindle model. I self-publish my book. I've never met anybody at Amazon. I uploaded the book. And then I found out they cannot print it in India. So I found this Chennai-based company called Notion Print. And they said, okay, you upload it with us, we'll print it for you, and we'll make sure it's on Flipkart and Amazon. Happened. It all happened. So their purpose is to help people like me reach the audience they want. That's the platform. Amazon is the ultimate platform. They are the biggest cloud platform. They're the biggest publishing platform. They're the biggest commerce platform. But you don't need to be Amazon to do a platform, because the picture here is not Amazon. The picture here is John Deere, a 130-year-old pitchfork, heavy machinery company. They thought they were in machinery. Now they think they're into agricultural optimization. So they take samples of the soil, they use satellite and cameras and other sensors to understand the field. They link it with weather data, fertilizer data, optimization software, not provided by them, provided by their partners. And their ultimate goal, their purpose, is to dramatically improve the yield of their customers. So they raised the bar on what their mission is. They created a vision that's compelling even for a 130-year company, not out of Silicon Valley. I don't even know where they are, somewhere in the Midwest. So what I'm trying to say is anybody can do this, but first you have to identify who are the people you want to do it for, how well do you know them, and how well do you understand their needs, and then lift the value of your proposition. Go one level above or two levels above. So the old model was control, as I pointed out. KPIs, process, systems, pretty rigid. And from control, even if you read the big strategy books, they're all about, locking, find these control points, lock in your channels, lock in your assets. I think it's a wrong approach. I think the approach should be not control, but contribution. And I believe the more you contribute, the more powerful you are. Apple contributes to 2 million people running a little business or a big business as an app provider on their platform. So there are 2 million businesses behind the Apple platform. So they contribute to people to fulfill their dreams, launch it on the platform, and make it available anywhere in the world. That's very powerful. Now, if you do this, you have 5 levers you can pull. So the first one is, how do you set direction? Are you very clear on your vision? Do you lay out what you expect people to benefit from when you deliver your product or service? Your mission should be concrete. Where am I going to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years? How do I get there? What are the signposts on the way? And like Lincoln said, the compass may tell you where the north is, but it doesn't tell you where the swamps are, the roadblocks are. So do you have a strategy that allows you to understand what's going on around you, what changes? If your strategy is, we have a 5-year plan and we're going to stick to it, forget it. Because there's nobody in this room, nor any room, that can tell you what the world looks like in 5 years. Nobody. And anybody who says that, don't trust it. Because we don't know. There's value creation. Now, value creation is something you need to constantly validate. So if people come to me and say, I have this great idea, I have this product, and people are going to love it. I say, okay, prove it to me. How do you validate that people love it and that they will still love it a year from now? So value is driven by the feedback you get from your users. Because you don't know. If somebody who pitches his venture to me comes with a business plan that says, in 5 years, I'm going to do $25.5 million in revenue, I say, you're not. Say, don't you believe in the plan? I say, yeah, I believe in your proposition, but there's just no way you're going to know what you're going to make in 5 years, period. It's just impossible. So value creation is a dynamic process, and it's entirely based on feedback. And that's why I love platforms, I love technology, because it gives you constant feedback. You know what people do, you know what people want, you know how people use it. But then, of course, another lever is how do you vest the power, the decision rights in your company? Does everything need to roll up to the CEO? Or do you say, okay, I organize my organization such that the big challenges can be resolved as closest to the problem as possible? And as I said, a value chain problem cannot be, if it's a real nasty value chain problem, supply chain problem, it cannot be solved by supply chain alone. It has to be solved by sales, marketing, supply chain, manufacturing, partners. So you create these multidisciplinary teams that essentially are targeted to solve problems or to deliver outcomes or to win a new customer. And they're never one discipline, never, ever. Next is you can motivate people. I bet you in all large companies, Philips included, I think most people work at 60% of their potential. Why? Because they're put in a box. They're basically told what to do. And, you know, one time I was traveling and the guide told me, sir, you have to do this and that. And then my wife said, you never tell my husband what to do. You just give him a challenge and he will run. Smart people want a challenge. Smart people need guardrails, but you give them a challenge, you give them a goal, they're going to resolve it. You give them the great team with the expertise that rounds it out, they will solve it. Of course, they need to be smart and motivated people. But you can get way more out of your people. I'm convinced about it. But the more rules, the more process, the more KPIs, the harder it will be. Last one is culture, the most important one. You know, atmosphere is part of the culture. You can create urgency. I can say, oh, we have to do this. We have to get this product out. You can do that. And many times you have to do it. But you cannot do it for 5 years. You know, there's no organization that has 5 years of urgency. Then there's something completely structurally wrong. So you have to recognize that you have to build in slowness as well in your culture. You have to give people time to think. You have to give people time to reflect. You have to take time out. You have to give the buffers so that you can run when you need to run. So all of these things are stuff you can influence every day because you're a leader. The only thing you need to do is be conscious about it and be conscious that these 5 levers are not independent. They go synchronized. So if you want to change your organization, it's not a project or 5 projects. It's waves, and it's a rhythm. I'm a surfer. I know about the rhythm of the waves. You catch a wave at the right time, you turn at the right time. It will be such a great feeling. You turn 2 seconds too late, you get crushed. And that's not a nice feeling. I had a couple of times I felt I was drowning. So there is a rhythm to things. You have to find the rhythm. You have to tune into the rhythm of your customers. You have to tune into the rhythm of the ecosystem. Now this sounds a little bit, vague. But once you get it, you will find it will be way more effective than all these projects put together. Because I've been in many situations where people said, oh, I think our issue is the rigor of project management. Oh, we don't communicate enough. I say you can put the best program manager in the world on it. You can put the best communication team on the world. You don't solving the fundamental problems. You don't get people aligned. They're not motivated. You don't follow the rhythm. So the ecosystem, I believe, is what's about. In nature, nothing grows with others. There's way, 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 way more collaboration than competition in nature. So the first question is, with whom do you engage? With whom do you want to engage? What kind of relationship do you, just like with your friends and family, what kind of relationship do you want to have? What value are you intending or contributing to that relationship? First, think about what can you do for somebody else. And if you create value and you're fair, you can monetize it. But you think value first, monetization second. And then what's the role you want to play? Do you want to be an orchestrator? Do you want to play with somebody else who will take the lead? Do you want to be a commodity player? So you identify your role, and then you think through, how is this complex web going to evolve, and how can I shape my role in it? I haven't seen many people doing strategy this way, to be honest. And I think it's probably the most important thing you can do, to guide your own company. So, how do you become an ecosystem leader? I can guarantee you, if you micromanager, you never become an ecosystem leader. You have to let go. You have to let go. The essence of leadership is co-sense, jointly feel what's going on, what people want, what they need, and co-shape. Find your partners, find the people that you trust, and together shape it. And look at all these emerging possibilities, because we have endless opportunity. There is this abundance of opportunity. So, if you recognize these 5 shifts, you internalize them, then you have to act on them. And the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge in it, move with it, and join the dance. Thank you.